Welcome back, watch people. Let's talk about dials for a minute, because in recent weeks I've found myself mentioning the importance of dials on your watch quite a few times, probably more in the last few weeks than I've ever done before, and I think I needed to make a video further explaining the importance of your dial on your watch, particularly when it comes to buying Rolex, and the difference that an unusual or a very pretty dial or a stellar dial, an extra special dial, the difference that it can make to both the short and long-term value of a watch, and how much importance you should place on a dial's rarity or beauty when you're purchasing a watch. Now look, the first thing that I did when I wanted an example of a pretty dial or an unusual dial, the first website that I visited was actually David Khalil's, because David's boss is a lifelong watch friend of mine, and someone who actually taught me, you know, I'm happy to admit, you know, this is a guy that taught me much of what I know in the watch business today. And one of the first things that I learned from David's boss was the fact that an important dial, a rare dial, really can make a difference to how much your watch is ultimately worth, both now and in the future. Now, I went over to David's website and had a look, and I'm going to throw some pictures up of one or two watches that I found on his website, and then I'm going to throw some other pictures up as we get through the video. Now, you'll notice that on the thumbnail for this particular video was a Rolex Day-Date 1803, a 1977. They called it the Bart Simpson Day-Date, but the bottom line is it's just a straightforward 1977 1803 acrylic glass Day-Date. Nothing particularly special about the watch. And for the purpose of this video, I did a little bit of research on Chrono 24 before making it, and the average price for a decent condition 1970s 1803 on Chrono 24 at least is somewhere between £9,000 and £11,000 ish, there or thereabouts, give or take a weekend's pocket money. Now, when you consider that £9,000 to £11,000, these watches are watches with pretty straightforward black dials, champagne dials, mainly champagne dials, which, by the way, remain, you know, the classic champagne dial remains one of my favourite looks on a watch, but nonetheless it's a very common dial. So £9,000 to £11,000 for a 1803. The watch that I'm going to throw up right now is a standard 1803, but with the yellow Bart Simpson dial. That watch was sold on the 22nd of March 2019 for a whopping 132,000 US dollars. Now, I'm not quite sure what that works out in pounds, but it's a lot more than £9,000 to £11,000, that's for sure. I mean, what is it? It's about 110, maybe £115,000. And the bottom line is the difference between the £9,000 to £11,000 1803s and this particular watch is simply the dial, the rarity of the dial. Now, is that dial worth that extra money? Absolutely not, of course it's not, but it shows an example of what hugely collectible, hugely rare and sought after dials can achieve. So look, there's an argument for saying that it is worth that extra money. You know, I'm talking about the sum of its parts now. If you took that dial out of that watch, there's no way that you would get that sort of money for it, the difference in between, if you get what I mean. Now, where were these watches coming from predominantly, and when were they made? Well, predominantly, I think Rolex had a big thing about what we would call today stellar dials back in the 1970s. I think they were at their heyday then. Onyx dials, malachite dials, lapis dials, rare stone dials. They made some absolutely stunning dials, particularly back in the 1970s, early 1980s. It's not something that they appear to do so much in the 21st century, and you would really have had to have travelled probably to places such as maybe Miami, maybe Dubai, certainly in the Middle East. You might have found something in the high-end boutiques in Saint-Tropez, but these watches were quite rare even back in the day, and there's no real record from Rolex as to how many they made, how many there are. It's a very, very grey area. It's just as if the CEO of Rolex walked into the production line one day and said, okay guys, we've got 2 dials that we're going to put in these 1803s today, and that's it. It's a limited 2-run edition. Nobody knows how many of these watches were made. Certainly the more common of the special dials or the stone dials would have been perhaps malachite and lapis. There are quite a few of those around. Onyx perhaps. Probably the best example we have of a modern day special dial would be the meteorite dial, which is actually was a production watch. I'm not sure if it still is, but I believe I think there's still a Daytona, isn't there, with a no, it's a GMT. Is it a GMT? I'm not sure off the top of my head. I'm sure you guys will tell me, but the meteorite dial was a special dial. Whether you think it's pretty or not is another thing, but it's really important that when you choose a watch, if you're looking for extra value in the future, the prettiness of the dial is super important. And I go back to a watch that I recently purchased for my own collection, and that was a 30 dial Submariner. I've always been a fan of the 30 dial subs, mainly because the dials are different, and I recently purchased a Champagne 30 dial sub, just a little bit different. It's something that sets it apart from your average Submariner, and that will affect its value in the future quite heavily because they weren't made in such large numbers. Now, if you're looking for a watch with a special dial, unfortunately you're probably going to have to go to some of the higher end boutiques in some of the plusher areas around the world. I very much doubt that you're going to find a Rolex watch with a Stellar dial or a Crown Collection dial in your local high street authorised dealer. It just doesn't happen that way. What Rolex do, or what we believe they do, because again there's no official information, is that these watches are made in very small limited runs, and they will be sent specifically to the highest end, the highest profile authorised dealers in some of the plushest cities around the world. They're not very easy to find. I can give you a recent example of one particular 1804 that I saw sold very recently. That's a white gold day date with a diamond bezel, factory diamond bezel, Stellar dial. That watch sold for £150,000. Amazing, you know, it's just incredible at how much value these Stellar dials put onto what is basically a pretty standard watch that is fairly readily available. Now guys, I don't know what you're sitting on at home there. If you have anything with a particularly rare or special dial, let me know. You can always send me an image, and I can pop some photos up in a future video. I'm sure there'll be some of you out there that are sitting on some extremely rare dials, and the Rolex day date, as I say, particularly the model reference 1803, was a dial, or was a watch I should say, that Rolex did seem to choose to use for a lot of their Stellar dials, as I say, mainly back in the 1970s, creeping in to the 1980s, and then I think as we got to the tail end of the 1990s, I'm not going to call it a fashion, but this process that Rolex were taking part in seems to have slowly died away, which is a shame, because I love to see the special dials. One dial that is out there right now that some of you may not have seen is that Rolex still make the 116613 LB and LN, the steel and gold Submariner with a diamond dial. It hasn't got the sapphires or the rubies in it anymore. They just use diamonds. That's a rare Submariner. A lot of you might not even be aware that they actually do that. I'll see if I can find a picture and pop one up on screen. I actually had one myself a couple of years back, but rather foolishly, the dealer in me allowed me to sell it, which I really should have kept it. But a beautiful watch. Look guys, I hope you've enjoyed that video, and as always I hope you've learned something. If you have, please give me the thumbs up, give the video a like and a subscribe to the channel. It'd be really helpful. I'm trying to get to 25,000 subscribers as soon as possible, and with your help I'm sure we can do that. Thanks for watching, and we'll speak again soon.